Hey everyone, this video is going to talk about E3 in the borrowing money unit. This is about buying, renting, or leasing. And there is a lot of stuff that we're going to go through in this video, so try to follow along as best as you can. The first part of this lesson talks about depreciation and appreciation. So what depreciation is, it is when the value of something you own goes down over time. So in particular, when you own a car, for example, say you buy a car for like $30,000, over time that car is going to lose its value. And that's why used cars are cheaper than new cars. In particular, there's like wear and tear on them. There might be some repairs that need to be done. But in general, cars tend to lose their value. And there is this calculation here that says the value of depreciation is going to be the original value times 1 minus the depreciation rate, and that is in brackets and to the power of the number of years. We're going to take a look at an example of that in a moment. Appreciation is the opposite of that, is when things increase in value over time. So like in particular, if you own a house, the value of houses tends to go up over time. So that would be a case where that asset, your house, would appreciate. So for example, due to increased demand, or if there's less supply for it, or if there are just changes in the economy. And the formula is the same. This should say the value after appreciation. And all that is we add the depreciation rate instead of subtracting it here. So there's an example here. Example number 1, a house was purchased for $250,000 6 years ago. The housing market declined, so houses became a little bit cheaper, and the house depreciated 0.5% per year. What is the new value of the house? So we always want to look for that keyword. It's either going to say depreciate or appreciate, or maybe it'll say it went down in value or went up in value. So it's just important to understand what those terms mean. But this is a depreciation question, so the new value is going to be the original value, so how much you bought the house for. In this case, $250,000. 1 minus 0.5%. My depreciation rate, I want to write it as a decimal, so that's going to be 0.005 to the power of how many years? In this case, it is 6 years. So we're going to do this calculation here and see what we get. So I have my equation all typed out on my fancy dancy calculator here. When we press equals, we get $242,593.13. So basically the house went down by about $7,500 in value. All right, and again, if the question asks for appreciation, we would just change that minus to a plus. Now there is a whole table here at the bottom half of the first page, which talks about the advantages and disadvantages of buying, renting, and leasing. So depends on what question is being asked of you. You might be asked to compare buying versus leasing. In particular, if we're talking about a car, usually you either buy a car or you lease a car. You don't really, you do rent a car, but you don't rent a car for like many, many, many years. When we're talking about housing, the two options are buying and renting. So again, like you might buy a house or you might rent an apartment. And I would say take some time to look at the advantages or disadvantages of each. Might be a good thing to put on a cheat sheet. The good thing about buying is when you buy something, you actually own it. You can do whatever you want to it. But the disadvantage of buying is sometimes you have to pay a lot more upfront. You are also responsible for repairs if anything goes wrong, because it is yours. It is your responsibility to take care of it. If we're talking about renting, in particular like renting an apartment, the good thing about renting is there tends to be lower costs per month, and there's usually lower upfront costs. So you don't have to like cough up a down payment like you would have to do for a house. Also for renting, typically repairs and maintenance are covered. But then on the downside, you can't renovate, you can't change the apartment or whatever it is you're renting over time, and you also will never own it, unfortunately. And then when we are talking about leasing, again, this applies really to cars. Generally, your payments are lower because you're only paying the cost for the depreciation. You also don't have to pay for repairs. You can also buy it outright once you are finished your leasing term, and you can also upgrade. Some disadvantages, I mean, again, you don't actually own it unless you decide to buy it at the end. If you wanted to get rid of it early, there could be a penalty. And if you drive it too much, there's like a limit on how much you can drive it. So if you do drive it extra, there could be extra charges for that. All right, we have another example here. Example number 2. We have 2 different options for a student, Allison, who is going on a student exchange to Spain for a semester and is trying to figure out her living arrangements. She's planning on spending 20 weeks in Spain and has the following options. She can rent a room in a hostel for $25 a night, which would include all utilities, or she can lease a 1-bedroom apartment for $650 a month, plus she has to pay a damage deposit up front of $1,000. She's also charged $155 per month for utilities. So which option should she choose and why? So this isn't just a question of pick an option and run with it. There is some math involved for this. So if she is renting a room for $25 a night, well, there are 7 nights in a week and she's staying for 20 weeks. So she is going to need the room in the hostel for 140 nights altogether. And if it costs $25 a night, we're just going to multiply those 2 numbers together, and she's going to be spending $3,500. There are no other costs because all of the utilities are included, so we don't have to worry about that. For the second option, she is leasing a 1-bedroom apartment for $650 per month. So she's staying for 20 weeks. There's approximately 4 weeks in a month, let's say. So she would need to rent the apartment for 5 months. So 20 weeks is approximately 5 months if we divide by 4. So she is renting it for $650 per month. She's staying there for 5 months. So she would have to pay $3,250 on the rent. And then she's also charged for utilities, which is $155 a month. So when we multiply that by 5, we get $775. And if we add those 2 numbers together, we get $4,025. But then not only does she have to pay the $4,025, she also has to pay the damage deposit on top of that. Now, if nothing goes wrong in the apartment, she's going to get that $1,000 back at the end. But it is still an upfront cost that she has to pay. So even if we don't even consider the damage deposit, she's still paying more money for option B than she is for option A. So option A is the cheaper option. Now, if you do the calculations and then you still say option B is the correct one, you would have to justify that in your own way. But we're just talking from a pure math point of view. Option A is the cheaper option. All right, example number 3. Sam and Sadie are looking for places to live. Sam is going to lease a condo for $1,350 per month, plus $200 in condo fees. Sadie is going to buy a house for $230,500. She's got a mortgage here, 25-year mortgage for 75% of the house cost. So she paid the other 25% up front. And then you have all the interest and compounding and so on after that. So number 1 says, how much will it cost for Sam to rent his condo for 5 years? So he's paying $1,350 per month plus the $200 in condo fees. So in total, Sam is paying $1,550 per month. There are 12 months in a year and there are 5 years. So multiply by 12, multiply by 5, or if you want to just multiply it by 50, you can also do that. So 1550 times 12 months times 5 years is $93,000. Very straightforward calculation. Again, we haven't used the financial calculator yet in any of these questions, but we are going to be using it for Sadie. So Sadie is getting a house with a mortgage. And when we talk about mortgages, when we talk about loans, that means we're going to be using the financial calculator. You can also look for the key information. Like if something says that it's being compounded, like you just know that that is, that means you're going to be using the financial calculator. So let's fill in this information here. We're only considering the first 5 years again. So we're not going to worry about how the mortgage is worth 25 years. My N number is just going to be 12 times 5, which is 60. My interest rate is 3.99. They're making monthly payments and it's compounded monthly. Now the present value is 75% of the house cost. So I'm going to do this calculation here on the side. 75% of the house cost is $172,875. That's how much the loan amount is going to be. Now I just realized I made a mistake because we don't know how much the monthly payments are going to be, and we also don't know what the future value is going to be. So what we actually need to do is we need to figure out how much the monthly payments are going to be for the entirety of the 25 years. And then once we get that, we can calculate how much that she paid over the 5 years. So that was a bit of an oversight on my part. So the future value is going to be 0, and my N number, instead of being 60, is going to be 25 times 12, which is, I always get this number wrong. I believe it's 300. Yeah, she's making 300 payments. Okay, so we're going to be solving for the monthly payment amount, and then we are going to be multiplying that by the 60 payments that she is making over the 5 years. So let's go ahead and switch to the financial calculator. We're going to be solving for the monthly payment. So she's making 300 payments, interest rate of 3.99%. The present value is 172,875. The future value is 0. Making monthly payments compounded monthly. Her monthly payment amount is $911.54. So I'm just going to write it down here while I still have the financial calculator open. And then we'll switch back to here. So my monthly payment amount is $911.54. Now this doesn't answer the question. The question is how much is it going to cost over 5 years? So $911.54, and she's going to be making 60 payments of that. But she also is paying the down payment up front. So to this answer, we also have to plus the down payment. The down payment was 25% of the house cost. So I'm going to do 25% or 0.25 times the amount, the cost of the house. And I'm just going to write my answer up here in this space. So we have $911.54. We are making 60 payments of it. And then to that, we're going to add 25% of the cost of the house. So in total, she paid $112,317.40. You could also do this calculation separately if you want to, the 25% of the house cost, to figure out the down payment. It's totally up to you. All right, part C says in 5 years, both Sam and Sadie are moving. Unfortunately, the housing market has declined and Sadie's house has depreciated 1.5% each year for the time that she has owned it. How much is it worth now? So again, that depreciation formula was on the first page. It is the cost of the house, $230,500, times 1 minus the depreciation rate, 0.015, to the power of how many years? In this case, it is 5 years. So again, I'm just going to highlight the important information here to show you where it came from. Let's go ahead and do this calculation. 230,500 times 1 minus 0.015 to the power of 5 because it is 5 years. And now it is worth $213,723.40. Okay. Part D says, which option do you think is the better option? So do you think Sam made the better choice, or do you think that Sadie made the better choice? And again, it is totally up to you which one you think is better, as long as you can justify it in some way. So for example, even though Sadie's house went down in value, and even though she paid more in total, I mean, she did actually own it. So you could justify it by talking about the advantages of buying your own place. On the other hand, you could say, well, Sam paid less money, so I would rather be in Sam's shoes, I guess. Either way, it's totally up to you how you choose to justify your answer. All right, example 4 talks about owning a car. So there are 2 ways in which you can own a car after 3 years. You can purchase the car up front, or you can lease it for 3 years and then purchase it after the 3 years. So we're going to consider a car that has a price of $18,500 plus taxes. Just a quick reminder, when we talk about taxes, they're 12% in Manitoba. Using the TVM solver, we're going to examine these 2 options. So option number 1 is going to be on this page, option 2 on the next page. Option 1, there is a down payment of $8,000, again GST 5%, PST is 7%, so in total that's 12%. The car is purchased at 1.9% per year compounded semi-annually and paid monthly over 3 years. Part A says, what is the total cost of the car including taxes? So the car costs $18,500. We're going to multiply that by 1.12. That's my tax number. So that is $20,720. What is the total amount to be borrowed? Well, this is how much the car costs, $20,720 including taxes, but the down payment means that we're paying that up front. So we're going to subtract the $8,000 and get $12,720. Now part C, what is the monthly payment? This is where we are going to use our financial calculator. So I'm going to write all of my information here. Again, we are solving for the monthly payment. So we're going to leave that one blank and solve for the rest of this. My interest rate is 1.9%, compounded semi-annually, so my compound number is 2. Monthly payments, my PY number is 12. Future value, I'm paying off the loan, so I want it to be 0. Present value, how much is my loan worth? It's worth $12,720. And my N number, well, I'm paying monthly, so 12 times 3 years. 12 times 3 is 36. So I'm going to put this into the financial calculator and see what we get. So I've got it all set up here in my financial calculator. If we hit calculate, we get a monthly payment of $363.74. All right, so I've got that written down there. And then in part D, it says, what is the total amount that you paid for the car, including the down payment? So we made monthly payments of $363.74, and we made 36 such payments. So when I multiply those together, I get $13,094.64. but then we need to add the down payment back because we did pay that up front. So when we add the other $8,000, in total we paid $21,094.64. So a very straightforward example, but there were a lot of parts to it. The other option we have is leasing and then purchasing it outright afterwards. So when we are leasing, there is no down payment that we have to make. We're paying $325 per month plus taxes. And then after 3 years, we paid $7,500 plus taxes on that. So we're just going to run through these examples. This one, because there are no monthly payments, there's no compounding or anything like that. We don't have to worry about the financial calculator. So the monthly lease payment is $325 per month. We're going to multiply that by 1.12 because those are our taxes. We get $364. The total of the lease payments, well, we're paying $364. We are making 36 payments again, or times 12 and then times 3. We paid $13,104 there. And then the total amount paid, well, we paid the $13,104 plus there is the $7,500 that we have to multiply by taxes. So that's $13,104 plus $8,400, which is $21,504. I don't think there's a thing on the next page that says which option do you think is better, but kind of think about that. There might be a question on the provincial exam that says which option would you choose and why. So just kind of something to keep in mind. The final example, number 5, says a couple wishes to purchase a new home. Their mortgage is $190,000. It's amortized over 25 years with a 5-year term at a fixed interest rate of 5.9% compounded monthly. Okay, so what this means is for the 5 years, this is going to be their interest rate. But after the 5 years, the interest rate could possibly change. And I think we're going to see that later on in this example. But the first one is asking for the monthly payment. Again, we're talking about compounding, so this is a financial calculator question, and we need to figure out what the monthly payments are going to be. So I'm going to write down my 7 things here. Interest rate, 5.9%. Present value, $190,000. In this case, there is no talk of a down payment. This amount is what they are borrowing. Payment is what we're calculating. Future value, again, we want it to be 0. They're paying monthly payments, so my payments per year is 12. Compounded monthly, my compounding number is 12. And then my end number, again, is 25 years times 12 payments per month. So 25 times 12, which is 300. So I've got everything entered into the financial calculator. Just going to hit calculate. The monthly payment amount is $1,212.58. Part B says how much will be owed on the mortgage at the end of 5 years. So we are still going to have this set up here, only now what's going to happen is my future value is what we're going to be solving for. We want to solve for the future value, or the value 5 years into the future. So we're still going to have the same setup here. Only now for the payment, we're going to put our payment number here, which is minus $1,212.58. And after 5 years, we want our end number to be, well, 5 times 12 or 60. So we want to find what the future value is after we make 16 payments on our mortgage. So this is a setup here, and we are going to use the financial calculator one more time to solve for the future value after 5 years. So switching back over to the financial calculator, I've updated it now where we are calculating the future value. I've got my payment number here, and everything else is the same except my end number changed to 60. So when we hit calculate, we get a future value of $170,624.93. Sorry, I'm just going to write that down here while I have it open. So my future value is $170,624.93. Now there is a part C to this question, which if we flip back here to the notes, at the end of 5 years, the interest rate is going to increase by 2%. What will their new monthly payment be if the mortgage is amortized over the remaining 20 years? So again, we are going to write down our variables, or our, I guess, financial calculator information, however you want to think about it. We're still making monthly payments. We're still compounding monthly. Now our interest rate has gone up by 2%, so the new interest rate will be 7.9. My present value is where we were at after 5 years. So this is the present value of the loan after those 5 years. We're still solving for the monthly payment. We're still ending up with a future value of 0. And my end number is going to be 20 years times 12 payments per year, which is 240. So let's go ahead and put that in the financial calculator. So when we flip over to the financial calculator, I've got all my information entered here, and I hit calculate. The monthly payment has gone up to $1,416.57. So that is our new monthly payment right there.